hearing Nebraska for the first time?
Yeah, I can. For me, it was something that I grew up on the East Coast in Ramsey, New Jersey, and there was a radio station out there, Q104.3, where you were constantly surrounded by Bruce Springsteen hits. I feel like I learned how to drive listening to Bruce Springsteen, and I was so accustomed to hearing big drums, big vocals, these sort of anthemic rock hits. And I didn't really know much about Bruce other than that, just sort of these big, lush productions, pianos, horns, you name it. And at some point in my 20s, I stumbled upon this album, Nebraska. And I think it was that thing like, I was playing and I was like, who is this? And somebody said, it's Bruce, Nebraska. And I was like, nah, can't be that. Like, it can't be the same guy. It was so different. It showed off such a versatility that I didn't know that was underneath the hood. And I think it was State Trooper. And I remember hearing that yelp, where he just goes, woo, but his voice cracks and the echoplex, the delay and everything. And I was so used to hearing, the boss. And this sounded like a guy going through something. And I was really intrigued by that, just sort of that versatility that the artistry in it and the ability to demonstrate the ability to be on the radio with these big anthemic worldwide smash hits, but then also to reveal something so vulnerable and sad and depressing and different, all from the same artist. I think that's what really struck me. And I think, again, I was like, who is this? There's no way this is Bruce. Like, this is so different.
Right. Yeah. The thing that really strikes me is like, it's this inflection point in his career, this like, until that point, a real anomaly that, like you said, there's like these radio hits. He was already a big star, but was nowhere near the level that he was going to be from Born in the USA, which was coming up, a lot of the songs came from the same sessions. And this feeling of somebody who is like sort of struggling with fame, sort of like at a point where he's not quite sure what's next for him and what he wants and all of that stuff. And taking these songs that were recorded in the studio with his band that are, had been produced in the normal way, and just saying, I'm going to sit in my bedroom and I'm going to use a 4-track and I'm just going to do everything by myself. And I'm going to see what it sounds like with these songs totally stripped down. All of that is like one, a big, amazing chunk of this, but then releasing it. And like at a time when, this is like, whatever the last single that he put out was like, or the last album had like Hungry Heart on it, that kind of contrast. It's so striking. It's one of those like moments in music history that's so exciting. It's like, I love it so much.
And that was my favorite part about being able to score this film, Deliver Me From Nowhere, because you talk about Bruce Springsteen coming off Hungry Heart on the precipice of becoming, the artist and the star he was almost destined and meant to be. I really love how the director, Scott Cooper, took the boss out of this movie and really, as far as biopics go, and I wouldn't really consider this a biopic based on Scott Cooper's approach and Warren Zane's approach on the writing of, it's really like a pixel, a snapshot in time of late 81, early 82, where Bruce was going through some stuff and got really enamored with this Badlands movie, which was, based on these killings, and then took it upon himself to write all these incredible songs. I think for me, I really loved that. Again, it was just like this little pixel of a mural of what a discography, what a life, but what a cool and bold choice just to look at such a specific time before he really took off.
Yeah. That piece of it, I hadn't listened to this album in a long time, and just starting to listen to it and hearing the story of Badlands being told, and I was like, wait a minute, like That this sounds really familiar. Wait, is that and like he's saying driving through the Badlands? And it's like, oh my god! And Badlands is like one of my favorite movies. I love it so much. So, um, reinterpreting that story, and that's based on a true story, and taking all of the like, it's brutal and horrible, and the things that happen are just like these random, insane acts of like totally unfathomable violence.
Yeah.
And it's told in this way that's like not quite sympathetic, but like trying to get into this person's humanity. And it's so skilled. It's so like poetic. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was another thing that really struck me is like listening to his lyrics. It's, like Bob Dylan or somebody like that, where it's this like dense prose. It's this, the imagery is so sharp.
The thing I really love about Bruce as an artist is that something that, coming off the back of my first debut score, which came out this year, also The Long Walk, which was, of course, is a Stephen King adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
I went down a deep dive on Stephen King, and Stephen King talked about one of his favorite writers of all time, talked about stay away from the usage of stuff and things. So be as specific as possible. So Stephen said, when my characters grab a beer, it's a PBR or a Budweiser. When one of my characters smokes a cigarette, it's a Marlboro or a Parliament. And I think that that's what Bruce does also as an artist. He doesn't just drive a car, it's a Mustang.
Mm.
It's not just a girl, it's Janie. It's, it's Atlantic City, it's the boardwalk. It's so specific about blue collar and all these things. And then what he did with Nebraska is, watching Badlands, it's really, it's the way he camouflaged Nebraska is sort of the genius of art and inspiration in general and creativity. I think Einstein said, creativity is hiding your sources, something like that. And I feel like when you listen to Nebraska, you could think of it as like, a slow moving, folky, ballad. But if you actually listen to it, there's such an intensity about, and he's basically just kind of paraphrasing Badlands, when you really get into lyrics, but how intense and vivid all the imagery is. It's a really well camouflaged album because it really could come across as like, you could listen to it and be like, oh, this is cool. It's relaxing. It feels meditative. But underneath the hood, it's actually quite intense and wrought with, like you said, violence and destruction, confusion, anger. So it's really interesting in that way too.
That specificity as well, being able to kind of like drill down into the minutia of what these like individual experiences are like, or just the feeling of like the vastness of the plains and, driving through middle America for somebody who's from Jersey and, that's not his experience. It reminds me of like, Ennio Morricone writing scoring Sergio Leone's movies, never having been to the American West. And those songs are like, they mean the American West to people when they hear them. And it's that same kind of feeling. And he takes that feeling of vastness, that feeling of the like Dust Bowl, whatever, open plains into the songs about New Jersey as well. So it's it's a really interesting, beautiful sound. Do you have specific like favorite songs on the album? Are there things that stand out more than others? Or
obviously, like I mentioned before, State Trooper started out, that was sort of the gateway drug for me to get into the album. And then Atlantic City, I think for me really means a lot. It kind of just feels like it represents the, no matter how bad we're doing, we can still put on some nice clothes and a little bit of makeup and get in the car and, meet me down in Atlantic City. And that's kind of near and dear. I mean, I used to vacation in Ocean City, New Jersey, which is literally a stone's throw down the street from Atlantic City. So going there every summer with my mom and dad and my brother, and growing up in New Jersey, I lived there for 24 years. it just felt like this sort of meta album for me, being a New Jersey native. And Mansion on the Hill too, I think is a song that really feels sort of, I mean, even representative of like the American dream or something. It's sort of this idea that if you could own this expensive house, all your troubles would go away. But that's also the complete opposite of the reality of what, you know, Americans may have been sold during that time when Bruce was writing this album. I think that Bruce has always been sort of an ambassador for America, whether he wanted that title or not, sort of an ambassador for the American music scene and for America in general all over the world. And I think that he took that upon himself and sort of like maybe didn't want it, but sooner or later he sort of, whether he asked for that or just was bestowed it upon himself, he kind of ran with that. Yeah, I think it's a very interesting look that, you know, just that mansion on the hill, that sort of American dream, that thing that you could have that's right there. Yet that's also, you know, looking for it in the wrong places. And just, I don't know, it's really interesting what he does with the poetry on this album and the lyrics.
That really empathetic depiction of the American working class and kind of the blue collar experience is to my mind, one of the things that made Bruce Springsteen the global superstar that he is. It's like he speaks to everyday people, for want of a better phrase, and is not patronizing, is not saying like, well, the plight of the working man. He's just telling honest stories and with empathy, but also with honesty, and not like sugarcoating things and saying like life is beautiful if you just give it a chance. It's like sometimes life really sucks. Sometimes it's full of like longing and mourning and you don't get what you want and you have to be faced with all of these things that you do want every day and it doesn't come to you. That kind of complexity.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what makes him this like generational artist and the reason he's had such a huge effect. I mean, releasing the electric versions of these songs, all of that stuff, and the excitement that people have just shows, you know, the skill, it's a testament to the lasting impact of this stuff.
And I just saw recently Bruce Springsteen, Jeremy Allen White, who of course plays Bruce. They went on the Jimmy Kimmel talk show, and Bruce was kind of saying, I saw the movie with Stevie the other night and I feel like I was too hard on the band, you know, because they played it really well. But I think what must have been so hard about that is for Bruce at the time to tell his band members, like, you guys are not going to be on this album. But I kind of think that that's sort of the point of art for me, and the way I've lived my life with art, is that it's not really a democratic decision by group, you know, by committee or by a group. It's sort of like trying to get to the heart of the matter. And that doesn't mean to be like, you should be selfish. It's a dictatorship when you're in a band or writing music. It's not that at all. It's actually more like, sometimes it takes really hard decisions to be like, this is the intention. This is the thing that needs to happen. And sometimes that means without the addition of other things. And I think that Nebraska would not have made its impact had it been with the full band. And I think that was something that I really took into account, where when Bruce was making Nebraska, you know, it was, I don't know if people understand how incredible it was what he did, because essentially went down to his local music store and bought what was called a TAC 144, which was this consumer grade, you know, recording equipment, 4-track. And the wobble of the tape, the distortion that came off of it, those were sort of happy accidents that then morphed into this sort of like insane, intense intention of, he didn't intend on making an album that quote unquote sounded unfinished or bad. But once he heard it back through the speakers, he realized, this is what I want to go forward with. And I think for me, when I was writing the score for the movie, The Deliver Me From Nowhere, I had the same level of intention, where I thought, the way I want my piano to sound, the way I want the strings to sound, the way, you know, even sort of like tipping the cap to Badlands, using some of what's called Orff instruments, sort of marimbas and vibes and these things that you hear throughout the movie Badlands. We actually ran some of my cues and stems through the TAC 144 to give it some of that texture in the score, because I really loved that level of intention. And I think what's really brilliant, and what people might not realize, is that sort of laid the foundation for Bon Iver's album, For Emma, Forever Ago, or even the fact that Billie Eilish is able to do all these things with her brother Phineas from their bedroom. I think whether artists realize it or not, this was sort of the first real big, home recording. And I think kids at the time, peers, kids, teenagers, musicians coming up, here they have Bruce, Hungry Heart on the radio, thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in production values, mastered record, but then also one of the biggest rock stars on the planet recording on like very consumer, not great, professional recording equipment at all. I think that sort of lit light bulbs across America and possibly even the world of, oh, it's not the guitar you're using. It's not the microphone. It's the brain. It's the words on the page. It's what you're singing about. It's how you're singing about. It is how you're recording it. Look at the Blair Witch Project. A high budget doesn't mean great art. At the same time, low budget doesn't mean great art. But I think it's so insanely, what a feat that Bruce was able to achieve with this record. And I kept coming back when I was trying to score this movie, or when I was scoring this movie, his level of intention about letting it all hang out, let that intention sort of cut through all the noise and all the static. I think that there's going to be a resurgence of appreciation and love for this album because, obviously this movie's going to shine a huge spotlight that millions of people are going to not only rediscover the album, but what I hope, and I'm sure what Scott Cooper and all the actors and Bruce Springsteen hopes, is that there'll be a second wave or a third wave or a fourth wave of love and appreciation of this album for the, the current and new generations to come.
Yeah. And a real appreciation for leading by example in using tools that are available to anyone to make this music. And like you said, kind of setting the stage for technological advancements have obviously helped a lot, but it's so much more, it's so much easier for people to take matters into their own hands now. And when this album was recorded, it wasn't a time period where people would think, I can make an album that could be released commercially on my own in my bedroom.
Yeah. Exactly. It's kind of like if you're going to write a story, if you use an expensive pen or a cheap pen, if the story's good, it's good. You're good. Like you can use a Bic pen, 50 cents from Walgreens. You don't need $100 ballpoint pen or something. So I think that was just sort of the proof was in the pudding that he inspired millions, whether musicians are actively aware of that impact or not. I think that he did. And that's, really a triumph for him as an artist.
Yeah. And just, the art is the important thing, the talent, putting what you have to offer out into the world. And not everyone is going to be, in a position where they're already a rock star and can put out an album and, have access to the means to distribute it in the same way. But in the modern world, it's like the pipelines for getting stuff out there are different, and people can put stuff on the internet and it can take off. So yeah, just having that available to you. And I think the movie, hopefully seeing that process and, getting that story out in the world to a broader group of people will again reignite that inspiration in people. And yeah, it's just like anything that encourages people to just do the thing and put what they have out into the world and share it with people instead of waiting for the right moment or pushing past the gatekeepers or waiting until you have the perfect equipment to do whatever it is that you want to do. Doing what you can with what you have and just going.
I think too, we became friends with the fashion designer Paul Smith a handful of years ago. He's a fan of the band, and we met him in London a handful of years ago, and we stayed in touch and developed a nice friendship. And he said to us when we met him, at some point in your career, you no longer need to look up. I think when you're starting, everybody's looking up. How high can you climb? How large, how big can we take this project? Whatever it is, if you're an actor, director, musician, whatever it is. At some point, you can kind of start to look to the sides and make lateral decisions. And I think that really stuck with me. And I think that Nebraska, here's the irony of that. Bruce and his team, as you'll see in the movie and as it's just as it's fact. This was a biographical. Everyone around him, I think, was sort of pressing, "What's the next move, Bruce? What's the next move?" His manager and the studio and like everybody, the label people, everybody I think around him are like, "What's the next move, Bruce?" So I think for him to do Nebraska was that sort of lateral decision. Now here's the great irony of that: by not looking upwards, on that album, he wrote quite possibly one of his most famous songs ever, "Born in the USA." So it's like while he was doing this random side quest of Nebraska, songs like Atlantic City, songs like Born in the USA, even more than I'm forgetting right now, came out of him, which actually made him even more famous and more successful and sell more tens of millions of more records and, upgrade to stadiums across the globe. So for me, what I took away from that, not only Paul Smith's, brilliant words, but just seeing that in practice. And I feel like I've noticed that too in my own craft, is that when you're working on a project, chasing something that you truly love and not doing it for the money or not doing it for what you think might come from it, you'll end up discovering you'll write songs. Maybe you're working on movie A, and then out of you will come 5 new ideas for the next Lumineers record. Or when you're working on a Lumineers record, I'll write something and be like, "Oh, that seems like more of a movie thing." And that's kind of cool. So I think I don't know. I think that it just was so fascinating that he sort of took this detour that only brought him back to exactly where he needed to go. And I think the album that preceded Nebraska, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was The River.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was Nebraska and then Born in the USA, I think.
Yep.
Had he not done Nebraska, maybe Born in the USA never would have come about. Maybe he just would have made a mediocre follow-up record. I mean, I doubt it, but because he's Bruce. But it's kind of interesting that I'm sure everyone around him was like, "What are you doing? You're missing the opportunity. Strike while the iron's hot. You're like going to completely cool down everybody. You're going to make this folk record with no press, no tour, no singles." His face was not even on the cover. By all accounts, he was taking, a giant leap backwards in the wrong direction. And as you'll see in the movie, he stuck to his guns, long term. It was the best thing he could have ever done. It's incredible.
Yeah. And just psychologically, who knows if Born in the USA could have happened if he hadn't had the creative space to do something different. But it also, like you're saying, the creative versatility, being able to say these projects, these sounds, these works of art go in these individual buckets, and I can decide what I want to do with them. I can shift them in different directions. And you listen to I'm on Fire, and that could be on Nebraska if it were stripped down and, it was written in the same sessions. But hearing it with the full studio production, it's like, this is the song that became this massive radio hit, but it's still got the same DNA. And having the skill to understand which of these songs fits in this very stripped down package and which of these songs go onto this album that has become one of the greatest, most biggest selling albums in history, is a part of his genius. And it's like, it's creating this work, but also being able to usher it into the world in a way that makes sense and put that packaging on it.
I'm really glad that selfishly I'm on Fire never made it to Nebraska, because the world would have been robbed of one of the greatest drum tracks ever. It's just so simple that, it's so good. And what Max Weinberg does in that song, and that palm muted electric guitar, it's just, the whole production is so simple. I think it's like an extraordinarily short song too, which is incredible. But yeah, just to kind of piggyback off what you're saying about the intention of what to do the acoustic on the Nebraska album and what to do a full band on Born in the USA. Again, I think that I sort of was extrapolating all those decisions that he made. And I think as a composer for the film Delivery from Nowhere, I was almost trying to, there's method acting. I think I was sort of method composing, where it didn't take that much for me to sort of imagine what it feels like to be a confused guy in New Jersey about what is the next step artistically, because I feel like I've nowhere near comparing, the success, obviously, to Bruce, but I definitely know what it feels like to be in a home in New Jersey and to be curious and to be totally confused about what is the next step artistically. Just the way Bruce feels and sounds on that record, it's so human. And I think that that's really what I wanted to bring to the table as the composer. So, yeah.
That's amazing. I think that is a lovely note to finish on. I have to say, I do this show because I am passionate about art. I believe in its ability to connect people, blah, 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 all these lofty ideas. But people bring me stuff all the time. Sometimes I connect with it, sometimes I don't. And when somebody chooses something to talk about that really excites me, I mean, I was like so like intensely emotional listening to this album again and just like chills.
Awesome.
So it's been really great talking to you, and I really
likewise. I hope you get to see the movie soon. I know it comes out October 24th. I hope you enjoy the film and of course the score. But I think I think people are going to be, there's going to be a new generation of Nebraska lovers everywhere for sure.
100%. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much again.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, do you want more conversations with incredible people talking about the movies and music they love? Then subscribe to the Spark Parade YouTube channel.